fantastic to have you on board. Thank you so much. And I'm very excited to learn more from you. I really want to know, how can I get a blockchain project off the ground? So please welcome Matthias. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Victoria, for the invite. And thank you, European Blockchain Convention. Very much looking forward to seeing how we can together all get the blockchain technology and any blockchain project off the ground. Just a few words about myself. My name is Matthias Weissl. I'm co-founder and CEO of Verum Capital. And thank you so much for joining us today during our masterclass. We've called today, we decided to call it Getting Blockchain Off the Ground, because that's really the number one question that we get from our clients. And after the almost 20 hours of discussing and presenting over the past 2 days, I think everybody has received a lot of good insights. And it's clear to us at Verum that everyone has the ambition to bring blockchain to life within their organization. And most of us have the technical understanding to do so, which is a very good starting point. Now, we conceived of this session as a masterclass because we knew we would be speaking to experts like yourself. We're not here to teach you about the blockchain. What our team is hoping to offer you today are insights that we've gathered by working with dozens of blockchain projects, organizations, NGOs, corporates, startups, governments. And we approach the blockchain technology a bit different than anybody else. And therefore, we would like to provide you some insights. So I will share my screen. And let's get started. So in the next half an hour, we'll be focusing on practical matters, not theoretical, practical. Specifically, how to turn your ambitious idea and technical skill into an implementable, scalable, and profitable blockchain project for your organization. In part one, I would explain who we are and what we do, so you can even take us serious in part 2 and 3. In part 2, I'll outline the essential capabilities of a blockchain team and offer 3 key tool sets that you can put into practice, hopefully immediately. In part 3, I offer 3 use cases to help illustrate how we have put these capabilities into action. And then finally, in part 4, I'll show you our project management framework to help everyone begin moving the space forward collectively and collaboratively. We haven't allotted a lot of time for questions or any comments, but please reach out to us directly. At the end of the presentation, you will see our email addresses, but also reach out to us via Umbrella or any other medium. So I hope some of you have heard about Verum Capital. We've been very fortunate in the last few years to have worked with lots of corporates, lots of global organizations, NGOs, startups, some of them that are in attendance today, to really drive the blockchain technology forward. We have ran more than 50 blockchain projects from start to finish, and therefore we're very fortunate that we have learned a lot from this. So for those of you that haven't heard of us, Verum is the leading blockchain advisory boutique. We're based in Zurich, Switzerland. We support organizations of all types in any kind of blockchain related project. We focus on the blockchain technology because we believe that decentralization is creating valuable new opportunities for business to become more collaborative, but also inclusive and sustainable, while at the same time increasing competitive advantages and operational efficiency. Therefore, we help organizations to lead this change by offering professional services that range from strategy to product development, technical implementation, and full global rollout and project management. Just a brief glimpse at our team and our people. Our team includes experts from finance, cybersecurity, strategy consulting, product design, digital innovation, and other areas, but entrepreneurship is at the heart of our business. So almost everyone on our team has launched their own company itself, so entrepreneurship and innovation is key to us. We combine our expertise to offer advisory and implementation services, corporate finance, and venture building, but also something essential, which is education. We're currently teaching at the University of St. Gallen, going in our 3rd year, and also we're guest lecturing at the University of Bocconi in Italy. These faces are the ones to look out for today, umbrella. This is the Verum Capital team that is here with me today. Jonathan Janison and Michael Taylor. Therefore, please reach out to them if you have any questions. We're very much open to a discussion. Now, if we were all together in a lecture theater, this would be the time where I would ask to show hands. I would ask who in the room has been tasked to lead a blockchain-focused team or project, or both. But since we're not in the same room, I assume we're all in the same boat here. And this is the boat that we're in. We've all been tasked before with something that has never been done before, and that is to introduce the blockchain into our respective organization. And that's how you can see how it works. Typically, many of you are working in an autonomous blockchain team that receives requests left and right from IT, from finance, HR, marketing, and other functional units. And you then have to figure out how to prioritize, how to deliver the blockchain technology as part of your own unit. Now, and here's where the problem begins. Because unlike IT or innovation teams, blockchain is a difficult technology and a difficult aspect to isolate. Why? Within one functional unit. Why? Because in order to deliver a blockchain solution, your team must be able to do many different things that are typically spread across an entire organization. And that's why it's very difficult to say one blockchain team has to deliver the entire concept of it around the organization. And that's why we at Verum Capital make we distinguish amongst the three different topics. At its very core, a blockchain team needs to be a leader in foundational technologies, number one, in disruptive innovation, number two, and application, number three. And what's very important, why do I highlight this today? Because it is of essence that these three capabilities are not confused or conflated. Now, the solution. A foundational technology, in the case of the blockchain, provides a basis for innovation on the very bottom. But in and of itself, it is not disruptive. And that's what people need to understand. Disruptive innovation can be achieved through the targeted and intentional deployment of a foundational technology. And the third layer, its application, is what the end user interacts with. Very essential. At Verum Capital, we see these as the three core capabilities because they require, on the one side, three different sets of skills, but also they offer three very clear roads to failure. And therefore, it's essential that I highlight this now. Let's start with establishing foundations. In order to work with a foundational technology like the blockchain, we need to either be able to build it on the one side or buy it on the other side. Now, the latter should not be taken for granted because without a solid due diligence framework for evaluating technology partners and driving purposeful investments, we can end up with irrelevant technology at the core of our solutions. And that is what happened often with many blockchain projects. Now, let's look at disruptive innovation. It happens when we introduce simplicity for the first time, when we introduce convenience, or when we introduce accessibility or affordability into a market or a sector or organization where complication and high cost are the absolute status quo. Now, this transformation cannot happen with a vacuum. It requires a strong contextual understanding and competence in systems design. You will hear this term more and more often in the future. Now, failure to design decentralized systems, processes, governance, operations around the blockchain would result in something that we refer to as technology theater. Technology theater is the mere performance of a foundational technology within a context that does not require it. Meaning, this is where most blockchain projects have failed because we invest in a technology, we develop a use case, then we launch some sort of pilot, and then we find out that we could achieve a similar result with a centralized database. And that is exactly what technology theater is. And we need to avoid this term. Now, finally, in order to communicate a clear value proposition to your users, we see that you need to be able to deliver an application with high usability or utility. The inability to assess a market and offer a usable solution results in absolute zero adoption. And when this happens, unfortunately, all of your team's work, your brilliant R&D, clever innovation, pilots, and so on is absolutely meaningless. And therefore, we have the following three things for you. If this is the first time you're seeing the capabilities of a blockchain team structured in the following way we mentioned, that's totally fine. Hopefully, nevertheless, it aligns with the strengths and gaps you've already identified within your team, because these are the core. So when you get back to work tomorrow, feeling inspired by all the things you've heard at the convention yesterday and today, I want you to have three clear tools to tackle your project. Whether it's just the beginning or almost complete, our insights today will focus on building your capacity. 1, due diligence, systems design, and market evaluation when it comes to blockchain. So these three elements we will focus on today. Due diligence, we start with it. At Verum, we have evaluated new ventures for the past few years since inception. After the wave of ICOs in 2017, our institutional clients wanted to be certain that they were onboarding a right and proper and reliable project with longevity. After almost 1,000 due diligence screenings that we've conducted, we've set up a flexible framework of 450 KPIs that we can easily apply to help an organization evaluate the blockchain. The most important thing to remember here is that conventional due diligence silos do not always cover your bases when it comes to blockchain. Distributed ledger technology require a cross-functional assessment that allows us to evaluate legal, but also technical, but also financial aspects simultaneously. I'll give you an example. Your legal requirements, they can be as sound as they may be, but they need to be embedded in your technology, in your code. Otherwise, it would be useless. And therefore, simultaneously cross-functional assessment. Next topic, very important. 2 important things for you to take away. Especially if you're evaluating products with smart contracts or any tokenization capabilities are 1, code security, and 2, economic security. Now, current cybersecurity models, they do not prioritize the importance of flawless code. I guess this is standard. But as automation through smart contracts becomes more commonplace, users will need to be assured that they can trust the code executing their transactions. To the same degree, they would typically trust the intermediary itself, but they don't have to pay in the same amount. So code security protects the end user. Economic security, on the other side, relies on governance, relies to remove any economic incentive into the system for an attack on a decentralized network. In the case of blockchain, of any blockchain protocol, economic security could simply mean that the network is governed in such a way that it incentivizes intended behavior and disincentivizes malicious actions. And a conventional due diligence framework or cybersecurity assessment might not be able to address code and economic security because centralized networks are just not vulnerable in this way. There is always an intermediary involved. Systems design. You don't need to understand what is on this graph here. Nevertheless, systems design, you will be familiar with anyone that will be familiar for anybody that is within IT. It typically refers to the architecture, modules, components, and data required to satisfy specific requirements. But when we work with decentralized technologies, which we all intend to, we need to expand this definition a little bit so that we can take a holistic view of the context within which our blockchain solution will be operating in. On this slide, we show, for example, system flows within a financial services ecosystem. On the next slide, we visualized it differently. So we've also visualized systems by using multiple access, which is what we did here in order to analyze the edtech space, for example. Now, second point about systems design that we all need to understand when getting blockchain off the ground: delimiting and leverage points. There are no rules for how to draw your system, how to draw the boundaries, but you do need to find a logical and productive way to represent the context for your solution. When you do, it's important to remember two key tactics. Delimiting refers to the boundary that we draw around the system, or where we decide that it ends. Very essential that you know where your technology ends. When you delimit, you're making a conscious decision about where and when your solution stops. And this has implications on your ability transforming the system, whether it is your unit, your organization, sector, ecosystem as a whole. And then the second point, a leverage point, is the best place to intervene within a system. It's where we can have the most impact with the least effort. And that is the goal, that we all understand where to enter the blockchain and leverage it at its maximum. At Verum Capital, we found that your chances of identifying the most effective place to introduce a blockchain-based solution can only happen if you delimit properly, to be realistic and delimit properly. Market evaluation. When you are finally ready to introduce your product into a marketplace, whether it's internal or to end users outside of your organization, it is important to remember that the road to adoption is not likely to be linear. We show our clients the vector drawing on the left that you can see, illustrates that as we move from centralized to decentralized solutions, we increase uncertainty and external risks in the pursuit of value. As a result, it is important to evaluate your market by making clear modifications to the business model, gauging the impact on all your stakeholders, and exposing any unforeseen consequences. Here's a snapshot of how we outlined the steps towards twofold revenue growth within 3 to 5 years for an enterprise client who was introducing smart contract automation into one of their processes. Whenever we do an exercise like this, we break down the integration, as you can see, of blockchain into clear steps based on thorough market assessment. Now, unlike due diligence and system design, the first two topics that we discussed, where we need to iterate in any conventional framework to make them relevant for a blockchain project, when it comes to market evaluation, we recommend sticking to the basics. First and foremost, you need to prioritize structured insights. If you have a working hypothesis about how the blockchain should be deployed, try actually to use quantitative research to prove it untrue, so that you at all costs avoid confirmation bias, which is key for the blockchain technology. There's often a lot of pressure and excitement from multiple boards and committees to make blockchain work. But it is very easy to find reasons to use this technology if you want to. But at all costs, we want to avoid technology theater, which we mentioned before. Secondly, focus on assessing the fundamentals. Customers rarely seek technology. They want actual solutions. Don't ask them about the blockchain. It's best not to talk about it at all. Try unpacking the benefits that the blockchain can bring to the table, so that you can compare what the stakeholders are seeking, whether it is trust or accountability or direct exchange. Now that you've seen structured insights, we want to offer 3 examples that illustrate how we have used some of these tactics to bring blockchain projects to life. We have chosen 3 use cases. For each, we will focus on a different KPI and show how this one key insight helped us to get there. We've also chosen use cases of varying ambitions, projects that are being developed for immediate use or midterm use or only in 10 years, and a project on the horizon. So let's have a look at the first use case. Outcome-based contract. Provided as a service by a large technology company in this case. This use case requires immediate implementation, so it needed what? It needed exactly strong market evaluation. Outcome-based contracts, or OBCs, are service contracts that are linked to the asset's output. They present an interesting opportunity for manufacturers because they can justify an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, premium while simplifying things for the end user. So it's a win-win situation for all parties involved. And because they intend to uphold this accountability of all stakeholders, they need to be administered in a trusted environment where the blockchain becomes in very handy. Both parties need to now be able to trust that the other will take responsibility for servicing when the reason for servicing was caused by them. So we are in reality deploying this technology to become the future intermediary to build more trust amongst two parties. In this case, the blockchain can enable an indisputable OBC, outcome-based contract, removing the insecurity and external risks seen by both the provider and the user, and creating a new relational service agreement. But what was important to identify was how to move both parties toward an optimal resolution, regardless of the outcome. In other words, how to ensure that each party is willing to take full responsibility and accountability for the equipment when they caused maybe downtime or error. And what we did this by isolating the critical decision or barrier to cooperation, which was trust. Through a market assessment, we discussed trust issues to create a process and that later on enabled a solution to implement in a technical environment. One of the many correlations that we found through our market evaluation, for example, was that when customers felt higher levels of trust toward the organization to fulfill the contract and leave the assets in good condition, they were more willing to adopt a blockchain-based OBC. Again, the blockchain wasn't the basis of the value proposition to customers. Rather, what the blockchain could offer, in this case, trust. Second use case, a decentralized app store that we have been developing with a financial institution on a global scale. In this case, we were seeking new roads to profitability for the issuer of financial products on a 5 to 10 year horizon. We used systems design, which we discussed earlier, to unpack the entire ecosystem for an issuer. Identify a clear opportunity, which was the following. SMEs are underserved, and EU regulators are actually working hard to support them with alternative forms of funding. It is time for a new type of financial product. So there was the clear fit. And we could identify a very specific place for blockchain to play that could change the entire ecosystem. And that was the introduction of secure and trusted smart contract templates for financial products, geared towards SMEs to provide the modular building blocks for an entirely new way of financing your small business. This use case is clearly becoming increasingly popular in the open finance space. As we mapped the new processes over the status quo, we identified the exact moments to reduce basis points and costs per unit. This mapping allowed us to prioritize certain steps and guide a user journey so that it was both beneficial for them as a company and profitable for the issuer. And as you can see on this slide, we could therefore strategically reduce basis points as we mapped processes to costs. So with a profitable issuance process in place, a path to revenue growth seems very certain. Given the increasing demand for blockchain-based financial products across Europe and how heavily these products are supported by the EU Commission. Let's look at our last case, also the most ambitious case. It is a blockchain-based ERP system. And because of its ambition, it remains in the early stages of development, of course, making it a good example to illustrate how we evaluate foundational technology, one of the core pillars we want to illustrate to you, to ensure that it will remain a scalable solution in the decades to come. The opportunity for a blockchain-based ERP system should be very clear. I mean, for those of you that have an ERP system in place, I'm sure you're only forced to use the same provider. You're all in whatever value chain you are. And again, for those of us that have a system in place as well, we probably also have no shortage of complaints about it and its provider. So therefore, we see a lot of opportunity. We see that stitching together blockchain capabilities could provide a modular and customizable system with higher automation potential. But automated potential, what does it require if you remember? It requires heavy due diligence. And this diagram of our solution is very simplified, but looking at what we can see here, we see multiple points where a user would need to be assured of code security and that automation is as trustworthy as an existing intermediary. And similarly, they would need to be assured that, same as deploying a stablecoin where you automate payments, you need to always be assured that the network has been audited thoroughly for economic security, as discussed earlier, and is free from incentive to harm it somehow. Now, let's move forward collectively. Now that you've all been thinking about foundational tech, disruptive innovation, application capabilities, but also how you can increase your capacity, due diligence, systems design, and so on, we want to close with a call to action. Blockchain works best when you do it together. Making the first right moves can be challenging and risky, and it feels risky, I see. But if we make these moves collectively, we all have a much higher chance of success. And at Verum Capital, we believe that those who collaborate are more likely to become pillars within the blockchain space. So, as you can probably guess, we have adapted existing innovation frameworks as well. We've built our own to serve our purposes when working with the blockchain. And within this adapted blockchain innovation framework, we have found a few steps that can benefit from collaboration, input, and outside and inside of an organization. These are highlighted in red for you. They include research stage, they include idea generation, experimenting, and testing. So given that most of your projects, especially if they're internal, as I would assume, are not in a direct competition with external parties, we hope that you will stay in touch with each other and with us. And when you get to one of these phases highlighted in red, please reach out and share your ideas, findings, successes, and failures with everyone, so we can all benefit from this. If you haven't started working with blockchain yet, our message to you is obviously a little different, and which is, don't be afraid. The blockchain space is not exclusive. We do understand that we need more organizations to experiment and engage. I mean, look around at this event, ask questions, follow our frameworks, and reach out when you need support. The bottom line is, if we do this together, we are much more likely to get blockchain off the ground. Thank you so much. We're very much looking forward to contact us. Here you can have our email address. I hope we could somehow fulfill some of your needs that you have on a daily basis. And we're very much looking forward to drive the adoption of the blockchain technology together with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Super interesting masterclass. I'm sure you will get a lot of questions directly through your Stan you have virtually in the sponsor area or even by email, because, well, a lot of information, very interesting, but also a lot of things I think people would like to cover a bit more. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. We could have continued, I guess, another half an hour, but we need to continue with the next session. So see you around, Matthias. See you around, Jonathan and Mike. Thank you so much again.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.